Hello. Today we're going to make a dark light. We're going to use it using mask in Unreal with a few different lights. We're kind of going to use actually a counterintuitive way, since maybe there's a cleaner way to do this, but this is the way I found to do it. It seems to work pretty well. Starting by making just a standard Unreal Engine 5 project, first person template, making a folder for custom art. And then we're going to need a few different materials. We're going to need a mask for the light, which will be a light function. We're going to need a post-process material, which will be used as our mask. And then we're also going to make a render target right here. And this render target is what we're going to actually use as the mask on our light function to signify which elements should glow. So we're putting our scene capture component we're going to put the light in the actual gun as we showed at the start. And we're going to have two different lights. We're going to have the standard spotlight will just be like the purple glow, and then the more blue yellow highlighting light. And that's the one we're going to put the actual mask on. The way we're going to make this work is we're going to render out the scene, but we're going to render out the scene with a post-process. And then here I'm going to make the post-process effect that will actually mask out how we're going to do this. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the metallic render to mask it out. But we don't want just like everything metallic, because we still want to be able to use metallic. So what we're going to use is a specific value within metallic. So anything that is 0.05 metallic, that value exactly within a small margin, we will mask out. Because metallic texture is supposed to be fairly binary. There's a few exceptions, but in most cases, it's supposed to be either 1 or 0 metallic. So we can fairly safely use this section of the metallic texture as a mask and use it for the purposes to give us the glow effect we want. It is something you'll have to be aware of when making your game. Like if you happen to make something that uses that particular value of metallic, but it seems like I thought it was a good workaround. Maybe there's a way to do it without doing that, but that's what I'm doing so far. Here I'm setting up just the material with the render just on a plane in the scene, just so we can kind of debug it. And then we're going to set up the actual mask on that render. So here, this is going to be the light function, I believe. Yes. And we're just going to grab the render target and we're going to throw it straight into the light function. This should be a linear color, and that will cause us errors at the very end here. But right now, it initially registers as a standard color. I don't know why it thinks it should be a color. I think maybe it's the settings here. But once you try to make a build, it will usually complain at you, and you'll have to set it to a linear color. Right now I'm turning off a lot of the things that you don't need to be in the render capture. So really all we want is the actual geometry of the scene and those type of things in order to affect what we mask off. We don't need to render all the fog or all the post-process effects, or we do need the post-process effects, but we don't need to render the sky and things like that unless you want to be able to mask the sky. Everything else we can leave on, and then we are going to take the actual post-process effect and we're going to put that into the render target materials. So right up here, we're going to dump in the light function, which is right there. Okay, now let's get the mask set up. So right now it's rendering the scene, just the plain color of the scene. You can kind of see that in that texture right there. And we're putting in the post-process effect. It's completely black, so what I'm doing is I duplicating this cube, setting a new material, and making it metallic at the exact function, which is 0.05, and trying to see if you can see it in the render target. Right now it's not showing up. I'm trying to debug it. And a few things that I'm going to do to debug it is I'm going to check the deep buffer visualization. And as you see, the metallic buffer visualization is the correct color. And that's one of the ways to kind of see what's going on, but it's still not showing up in the render target. And after messing around for a little bit, I kind of realized that I just have my render target shifted 90 degrees. I just have it in the wrong spot. That's just where it showed up default, and I want it to be at the end of the gun. So I'm just going to move that correctly, and then as soon as I do that, it will be in the right spot. But while I'm here, I'm going to set the lights to the right color. So this is the general purple glow, and then this is going to be the more blue yellowish kind of highlight effect. These are just standard cone lights. There's 2 of them, and they're just in the exact same spot. You do need the cone lights to be in the exact same position as the scene capture. You noticed it had a highlight effect, but it was all kind of wonky in that preview. There's going to be 2 reasons for that. One is the cone of angle, and what you need is the angle of the light, you need it to be exactly half the field of view of the scene capture. And as long as the angle of the light is half of the scene capture, then the mask will work correctly. The other thing is the light itself needs to be rotated 90 degrees. So I'm fixing the first part right now. I'm actually going to reduce the angle a little bit to 30 degrees. It's going to be a little bit narrower, and it's the right size now, but it's offset incorrectly. So I need to rotate these lights, messing up since I'm trying to rotate both at once. But really just the glow light is the one that needs to be rotated. The main light you can leave exactly where it is, and this glow light, as long as you rotate 90, here you go, and it should be lined up, which it is. If you look at the buffer, the preview we kind of threw up onto the top, it is showing the mask correctly. Now let's add some fun stuff. So technically the effect is working fine right now. We have everything we need, but let's throw in a blood decal. So we have a blood decal, we're gonna throw it on the ground, but we want it to be old blood, and we're gonna turn on the metallic for this decal. Now this is slightly counterintuitive, but it makes sense once you think about it, is you actually want to set the metallic to 1 and the opacity to 0.05, because the metallic actually gets scaled down based on whatever the opacity is. So as you can see, we have the glow effect here, and the cube is also glowing. You kind of can't notice it very much because it's all one flat color, but it is glowing. It's showing up in the buffer correctly. And here we go. I'm setting I think I scaled up the texture a little bit. I think by default it is 256 in texture resolution, which makes it a little choppy. I increased it to 512 by 512, and then also made it a bit darker so you can kind of notice the difference a lot more. There we go, scaling it up a little bit. This is obviously performance dependent. If you have like a small room you're investigating, you can probably get away with fairly high resolution, but if it's going to be a part of a larger game, then maybe you need to keep this texture fairly small. And that's the effect. I'm just going to finish this up by trying to make a build. I try to make builds of the projects I do every day to just kind of keep track of what I'm learning, and then so I have it as reference in the past. And if you notice, it's not working. And that's the exact error I mentioned at the start, where both these materials need to be linear colors. It works in editor, but as soon as the build works, or you make a build, you can see it broke because it recompiles the shaders, I think. And then I'm just throwing it into my daily builds. Hope you guys learned something interesting. Catch you later.